Welcome to the week 5 Q&A. I have a couple of juicy questions, so I am going to get straight into it. So the first question is in relation to exercise. Can you please tell me more about weight versus reps and the benefit of increasing weight but being able to do less reps, or the benefit of less weight and higher reps? Okay, so when we are trying to get stronger, what we need to do is make sure that we are causing a stress to the muscle. So we can do that via lifting weights. Now, when I am programming exercises for people and I'm not there in the room with them, I will often set a rep range. Now, the rep ranges that I set are evidence-based. I'm not just making numbers up. And there is evidence to support working within different rep ranges. If you were a power lifter or a strength athlete, where you need to basically perform one mega massive lift, for the example in the Olympics, you would be training within that kind of 1 to 5 rep range, lifting as heavy as you could so that you couldn't possibly do more than between 1 and 5. If you are trying to get stronger and potentially grow some muscle, which is probably where most of us non-athletic populations sit, then working somewhere between an 8 to 12 rep range tends to be the nice little buffer there. And if you were an endurance athlete, where your muscles need to go for longer periods of time, going for anywhere up to 30 reps would be appropriate for them. The reality is you can build muscle in all of those different rep ranges. So it's not like one is better than the other, but it's about finding what is the most appropriate for you. I don't really have any of my people working in that lower rep range between 1 and 5, because we have to start to take into account things like the risk versus the reward. If you're lifting something so heavy that you can only do 3 reps, obviously that comes with quite a big risk factor as well. And like I said, unless you're competing in an event, then you just don't really need to be doing that. At the other end of the scale, if I program that you had to do 30 reps of every exercise, you're going to be there all day. And most of us are busy and we just haven't got time to be smashing out 3 or 4 sets of 30 reps. So I tend to program us in the middle, somewhere between 8 and 12, because it's not going to take too long. And also it just reduces that kind of risk element. Now, in terms of intensity, in order to change your muscles, in order to get stronger, you must be challenging the muscles. So when I set a rep range, we're going to just use 8 to 12 in the example now going forward. If you can lift a weight, we're going to choose, let's say, single arm bent over row with 5 kgs. If you can do 12 comfortable reps with a 5 kg, and realistically you can keep going, then you are already strong enough to lift that weight. You're not really stimulating your muscle to get the damage that we need it to in order to get stronger. You can keep going and keep going and keep going until you feel like it's starting to get tiring and you can't go anymore. But again, we haven't got all day. So this is where we have to be honest with ourselves and say, do you know what, actually, that's feeling quite easy now. I need to continue to challenge myself. So now I need to lift a heavier weight. So using that same exercise, the single arm bent over row, perhaps we might pick up a 6 and say, okay, cool. This feels better. Now I can get to 12, but those last 2, I'm having to put the work in. That's excellent. Let's say you didn't have a 6 and you had to jump up to a 7 or an 8. You might do 8 reps and say, do you know what? I absolutely cannot do another rep now in good form. And that's where I need you to stop. Because quality over quantity, always. But if you've hit at least 8 reps before you feel like that quality of the rep is going to fail, then you know that you're in that right range to challenge your muscle adequately. The whole point of keeping a note of the weights that you're lifting and the reps that you're lifting is that the next time you come to do that workout, you'll have a look and say, okay, last time I did my single arm row with an 8 kg dumbbell, but I only managed 8 reps. So today I'm going to try and get 9 or 10. And that's what you would go for. And if you do manage to get that improvement, you make a note of it. And what that shows us is that you are getting stronger, because previously there was no way you could have done 9 reps and now you can. That is called progressive overload. And that is what we are chasing in order to make sure that our muscles are getting stronger and potentially bigger if that's what we're going for. So I put those rep ranges in place so that you can work out the intensity that you're working towards. I know that when you're working from home, you might not necessarily have a lot of options in terms of weights to just keep going up and up and up like you might do in a gym. And that is where increasing the number of reps can come in quite handy. And if you are doing home workouts, you will notice that I've been a bit more generous in the rep ranges, because what we want to do is fatigue the muscle. If you cannot go up in weight because you physically don't have that with you in your gym space, then I would encourage you to do more reps until you feel like, okay, yeah, this is getting hard now. At some stage, again, if you're working from home, you might find that you've actually improved your strength so much that you might need to invest in some more weights just so that you can continue to challenge yourself. This is where we can also start to think about things like tempo. Doing a movement very, very slowly can make it a lot more challenging on the muscles. So you might find that you start to get to that fatigue point within the rep range without actually changing the weight. So there are lots of different ways that you can continue to challenge yourself, but it's not that more reps for less weight is better than more weight for less reps. Hopefully that's the right way around. It's all about challenging the muscles. And if I've said 12 reps and you could have done 15, you're already strong enough, so you're not challenging yourself enough. So that's why we use those ranges, just so we can make sure that you are working in an ample intensity for what we're trying to achieve. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to talk about is food tracking. So a few of you that have been doing the tracking now have been doing it for a few weeks. And some questions are starting to come up about tracking accuracy, and also completely normal, a bit of a fatigue starting to come into place with tracking, because food tracking can be onerous. So I just wanted to have a little talk about food tracking, just because I don't want people to become super bogged down by it. Food tracking is a tool. It's a tool that we use to help us have an idea on how much energy we are consuming, which is obviously super important for us to know because we're trying to address our energy balance and try to lose some fat. So ideally we need to know what's coming in, and tracking is a tool to help us do that. Now, it can become onerous, and what you might find is that you start kind of repeating the same meals all the time, and then it's, oh God, here I go, tracking again. So what I would encourage you to do, if you do find that you are eating meals on regular rotation, save that meal. When you track it into the app, save it as a meal so that next time you have it, you just need to press the meal rather than each individual ingredient. So there are ways that you can make it a little bit faster for yourself. But also, I want you to really start paying attention to what the macros are as you're tracking your food. So you're not just doing it and then hoping the numbers all match up at the end. I want you to create meals where you know this is this many calories and this much protein. Or I want you to pay attention to foods that you eat regularly to say, oh yeah, a banana, that's generally about 110 calories. Because I don't want you to have to track forever. So I want you to be able to use it as a tool to help you learn roughly how many calories are in what foods. And I want you to be able to start to create yourself almost a bit of a meal plan in terms of the kinds of foods that you're finding yourself eating on repeat now. Because at some stage, ideally, you won't need tracking anymore. You will just have a rough idea on what you need to fuel yourself for the day. And if you are having something different, or if there was a new thing that you wanted to try and you weren't sure on the calorie content, then you could whack the tracker out and check it out. And add to your knowledge base. So please don't get stressed about tracking. It's just a tool that we're using and a tool that we're learning. And if you miss some things, that's okay. But as you're doing it, please do pay attention. I did mention briefly there about starting to formulate a meal plan. Like I said, I don't want you tracking forever, but having a good idea on how to fuel yourself is going to help you stick with this forever, as in stick with your healthy lifestyle forever. So what I would encourage you to start doing is almost creating some meals that you have on rotation that you know are super calorie and protein appropriate for your goals. So for example, I'm going to use myself as an example because I've been living this now for a few years. I have literally had the same variations of the same 2 breakfasts probably for about 5 or 6 years now. I have either overnight protein oats or overnight protein wheat bix. Both of those recipes are in the recipe books in your app. Literally, I have had either one of those almost every day, holidays and occasional weekends as the exception. So I don't need to track those meals anymore. I know that they are calorie appropriate, protein appropriate, fiber appropriate. So they are what they are. I also have maybe 4 or 5 meals that I just know the portion size of. I know that they are appropriate for the calories, appropriate for my protein. And so I can just rotate those and not worry too much about it. As long as I know that I'm kind of eating these meals with a few snacks, I know that I'm within my calorie range. So now that you're starting this process with the tracking, I've asked you to pay attention to individual items, but also start paying attention to meals, because it might be that actually you find a meal that's just easy, repeatable, and going forward, it will help you to have that structure in real life. I say real life in inverted commas because you're not going to be in a fat loss phase forever. You're trying to lose fat at the moment, and hopefully we're going to get you to your goal and then maintain that lifestyle. So I don't want your dieting life now to be too far removed from what your life will be like afterwards. It's just that afterwards you'll be able to incorporate a bit more food into the equation. So we want to start setting those baselines now and having those meals that you already know will kind of just fit into an overall weekly meal plan will be super helpful. Now, something that I actually spoke to one of my one-to-one clients about last week, which is an interesting concept and probably not something that you would expect me as a nutrition coach to tell you, but actually it makes very good logical sense. So if you are done with tracking and you don't want to do it anymore and you like structure, then what you can do is take the calorie and protein macros that I have given you and go into an AI, I don't want to say ChatGPT or Claude, whichever AI thing that you are using, if you are using it, and literally ask AI to create you a meal plan for 5-7 days, however many days you want, in whatever structure you want to eat. If you only want 3 meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or if you want breakfast, lunch, dinner, and a snack, or if you want 2 snacks, you tell it what you want, how you want to structure your day. You tell it your calorie requirement, and I've given you the range, so you can give it the range, and your protein requirement, and you can tell it your dietary preferences. You can tell it what you like and what you don't like, and you can ask it to create you a meal plan based on the things that you like. Because if I write a meal plan and give it to you, there's no guarantee that it's going to work for you, because you might not like the foods that I like. You might not be able to cook the things that I tell you to cook. So at least this way, you are having something created personally for you in the way that you like to eat, and you know that it's going to be calorie and macro appropriate for your goals at the moment. That could be something that is worth trying, because all you then have to do is follow your plan. You don't have to worry about tracking, because you know that as long as you stick to that plan, you are eating in the correct macro range that I have set you. So that could be something to try. If you like a bit of structure, or if you are wanting a few ideas for different meal options that you might try, I would encourage you to give that a go. And if it does interest you and you're not really sure how to start that off, drop me a message and I will send you a prompt that you can literally just copy and paste into it. And then you can start playing around with it then. And it's really helpful because if you do get to the point where you're like, yeah, cool, I'm happy with that, you can ask it to make a shopping list. And then you can just check through your cupboards, see what you already have, see what you need to buy. And then you can use that to do your shopping for the week. So really, I'm a massive fan of meal planning, and I write my own meal plans every week. I turn my meal plan into a shopping list and I go and buy that because I hate food waste. I hate wasting money. So buying exactly what you need is a really good way to save yourself some pennies and to save yourself some time. So I'm all for it. Not probably what people are expecting, but this technology exists, so we might as well use it for our own good. So that's another idea as well. Just if you are getting into that kind of tracking fatigue and you just want to almost be told what to eat, we can achieve that, but we obviously want that to be on your terms. So if you want that prompt, give me a message. Otherwise, hopefully that was helpful. Let me know if there is anything else that you need me to cover, and I will see you again next week.